Hey folks, are you getting ready to bind your quilt? Well, let me show you this super easy trick on how I trim my quilt with all the layers and get ready for that binding. Are you ready? Let's get started. And welcome back to So Well with Rob Appell. It is such a blessing to see all of you out there. And yes, let's start with congratulations for having a quilt that is quilted, all 3 layers. And yeah, it looks like the threads have been picked mostly. And now we're ready to trim down the edges. And what I would like to teach you all today, first of all, really, there's probably no perfect quilt out there. There's none that are perfectly square or rectangular. I've never taken the time to pull my diagonals as I was taught in my world of construction. But what I do want to do is trim the quilt so that when you look at it, it has the perception of square. And I do that by using my blocks amongst the quilt, choosing a series of seam allowances that I can find that are consistent amongst the quilt that I'll then trim from. So let me just go ahead and show you how I'm going to do that, and then I'll do another video on how I'm going to use the scraps and or the same fabric as the binding. I will do that by machine, yes, because I consider and a 4-letter word. But that's another time for another day. Welcome to the show. If you have first time here, please consider subscribing. If you are a quilt maker, I have got great content for you. Check out our Scrap Masters series on Friday afternoons where we are sewing through our parts and pieces in a random fun way. And that's what this quilt is from. This is a Scrap Masters. This is actually the Series 2 project. And right now, let's go ahead and get ready to go trim this down. And I probably should find a seam allowance. It's easier for you all to see. This is a brighter color, so that's probably going to be a little hard to find. Let's go ahead and go to this side first just to really drive the point home. And first of all, I really want to make sure I don't have anything but just this single layer of quilt, meaning that make sure you take the time and you don't have anything else underneath your quilt. And because I am going to use my excess from coming off of the long arm, I also want to make sure that I'm going to be able to trim this and use what looks could be a good 2.5-inch strip right here. This will hopefully help you all see what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my ruler, and the larger the ruler, the longer the ruler, the better for this. And I have found right now, as I'm looking at a 2-inch mark as I come down through here, that I can really see a nice clean line that lines up with my seam allowance. Now, these are 2.5-inch pieces, which means I really should be trimming to 2.25, so that when I bind this and wrap it around, I'm keeping as many of my star points activated as possible. So let's do that. Let's take into consideration the true math of what we're doing today. So now I'm going to find this 2-inch mark, and I'm going to look 1/4 inch past it, and I'm just going to line up my ruler. And sometimes you'll notice I actually realign the quilt for that perspective of square. Not every single micro inch, but most of it. Now I'm going to come down here, cheat for a second just to come off of the quilt to start a nice clean edge. And now again, looking all the way down, I'm going to begin this cutting through all of those layers and allowing myself what is going to give me a very nice ability to sew on a clean edge when we get ready to do the binding. Now, the next trick I want you to see, just still thread picking, machine quilting. Using the full length of the ruler to your advantage, meaning sliding about 1/3 of it down to the cut you've already started, will help you really keep your cut true and consistent as you continue to start to look for those marks where you were cutting before. Remember, I was doing a 2-inch. As I'm looking through here, then I went to 2.25 for the math. And I'm just checking that and slightly adjusting. You can see the quilt all the way through so that it lines up as well as it can on that 2.25 line. And I still have a good 1/3 of my ruler now down here on the cut to make sure that everything is staying as nice and as square as possible. cutting up near the end. And again, I'm going to remove, slide, and relocate. You've taken this much time to do a beautiful job on your quilt. So let's not get in a hurry now and start cutting so quickly that we make errors. I come to this section, and I should point this out as your leader, as your instructor, and as a carefree quilter. You can see right here that something went really south in the alignment of those seam allowances. But then later on, we catch up again for it. So what I really need to do now is basically do a visual compensation, and or I might need to come several seam allowances over till I see a line that really lines up. So you can see this black line now that's really working, where some of these other lines were kind of going south. And again, had I just come up here and laid this ruler looking for that marker at my 2 1/4, I would have started cutting this drastically off. So this is why having a good half to third of your ruler still on the part that you were cutting is a very nice trick for us. Now, as I come to this corner, getting ready to trim, but before I cut, my eye is not only going to evaluate the lines I've been using on the ruler and the quilt, but now I'm also going to turn it around and evaluate the lines for square, looking at, oh, look, that 2 1/4 is going to line up nice as I come and begin trimming that perpendicular edge. So now I'm just going to go ahead and finish this cut all the way through. Set this aside for later because I do have at least a good 2.5 inches of working space that I can then come through and cut down for my binding pieces later, which will be very efficient and will look really cool with this quilt if you ask me. So I'll just set that aside. And just due to space management, I really prefer to just work my way now around the quilt. I guess if you were really concerned about that binding, you could make sure that you were trimming off your long sides first to keep them longest. But right now, for just ease of management, mostly to make sure that there's nothing else under the quilt but just the layers I'm trying to cut, I've just gone ahead and rotated the project here on the table. And now again, I'm going to look down here and find that squared edge. Go back to the seam marker allowance I was using before at the 2 1/4. Let my eyes find that up and all the way through the quilt again. Maybe make any slight adjustments if necessary. And I will go ahead and trim the quilt completely like this and be ready for the binding. And I will see you all for that video coming up real soon. Thanks for joining me here today on Sew Well with Rob Appell. Don't forget about our mystery quilt along, Tiffany Hayes and myself, coming up New Year's Day this year. You can check it all out at robappell.com. Join me Fridays for Scrap Masters. Make an amazing quilt with just your old parts and pieces. And we'll see you again real soon. Thanks for being here. Till I see you, stay well.